Hello, everybody, and welcome to our post-wrestling Money in the Bank review. I am John Pollock, joined by Wai Ting here on a special Sunday morning coming off of Saturday night show at the Scotiabank Arena, night 2 of 3 at the venue for WWE, which wraps up tonight with Heatwave. Hello, Wai.
Hey, John, how you doing?
How are you doing on this Sunday?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Yeah, doing okay.
Okay.
How about you? How are you?
I'm okay. I'm fine. It was an earlier night than some of these shows. I mean, we're out of there by. I mean, you were out earlier. I left by like 11:30 from the arena after the press conference.
Yeah, it's great.
We should mention off the top that with the 7 p.m. Eastern start time, it appears that is going to be the new start time. It is what is advertised for SummerSlam, and it would appear for the North American shows moving forward. That is going to be across the board for at least North American shows. Obviously, the international shows, they cater them to the market. But do you like bumping things up an hour?
Well, I'm curious to know the exact reason why they decided to do that.
I mean, I think like the idea would obviously like they have their reasoning for it of like having the earlier start time, whether they feel that caters to a certain audience. I mean, we saw like we're going back to around 2011, 2012 when UFC tinkered with their start time and they moved from 10 Eastern to 7 Eastern. But they moved from a 10 p.m. Eastern start time for the main card to 9 p.m. Eastern. And just moving up that 1 hour, what they found was, especially for the West Coast viewership, you're talking a 6 o'clock start, and that was just too early, and they quickly moved it back. But you have, number one, it's different demographics. It's typically you're going to see an older audience for these UFC pay-per-views. Number two, it is a difference between, like, would WWE be making this move if not for, I think, more flexibility when it comes to streaming, and for a younger audience that they're catering to. Maybe that is part of the idea, is that a 7 to 10:30 show is a lot more easy for a younger viewing audience. It also gets them that press conference out of the way. Like they're done that before midnight, and they're not going super late with that either. It's a contrast to AEW, which is the opposite, where they are these lengthy shows that go to roughly around midnight Eastern time. But again, pay-per-view and probably some changes in, their core audiences.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear, either an executive like a Nick Khan or even a Paul Levesque in the future speak about that decision.
So tell me just overall, Wai, you and I were both at the show on Saturday night. We were set up in the press box, although you did the Wai Ting special. You navigated throughout the arena. You took in some matches in the press box, and then you ventured into the wild. How was the live experience for this 5-match show?
Well, first I want to talk about the live experience at Wide Open.
Yeah, let's start. Let's go in order.
For the cash in here. Thank you everybody who decided to make the trip over to Spadina and showed up at Wide Open. We packed the place, I think we can very easily say, and a much better venue, I think, for this type of gathering than what we.
It was a great setup for what we were trying to do, and just the amount of drop-ins we had throughout the day was really cool. Just some people that I have not seen in so long that ended up making their way. Yeah, this is a slice of some of the folks that were there in at Wide Open. Yeah, LA Knight did not make it there, although T-shirt guy did. We did get to meet, I should say, button-up shirt guy in the post.
That is correct.
Thomas made his way there. Look at this guy, a total champion. I was so curious, and we've met Thomas in the past, but it was great to put a face to the shirt.
That's correct. Yes. Cena and WH was there. Damian Abraham, Dan Lavransky was there. Of course, we had Brandon Thurston and Benno and Stephanie Chase. Those three.
Jack went on in the house.
Yep. So yeah, a lot of fun. We always love to do these whenever wrestling is in town, and this was, I think, one of the better ones. So thank you all who showed up and said hi, and thank you, Poison Rana.
Yes, thanks to the Poison Rana guys for helping putting all of this together. And we did do our 1-hour Wrestling Media Summit, which will be coming out at a date to be determined. But it was a really great roundtable chat that we had with Benno, Stephanie, Brandon Thurston, and of course the great Wai Ting. So look out for that. We will be releasing that To be determined. We just haven't figured out when we're going to be putting that one out.
Yeah, I guess going back to Money in the Bank, yeah, it was like, like I've seen so many shows in that building, and I feel like this time, this was one of the more packed crowds that I've seen. Usually I can like go down there and be able to find a free seat. This time it was actually kind of difficult. Like everything up to the rafters, up to the very, very top level was filled. So demand for the show, at least to me, walking around felt very high. And the crowd was as hot as usual Toronto crowds were.
It was a very, very electric crowd throughout most of the show. The last WrestleTix number was 17,828. The announced attendance on the broadcast was 19,858. And Paul Levesque stated afterward that this was a Canadian gate record for an arena show. So that would exclude the WrestleManias at Skydome or any stadiums. But stating that between the 3 nights, they're looking at like over 45,000 tickets between the 3 nights. And Heatwave is, if it's not already crossed it, is very close to 10,000 for tonight, which is a very strong figure for NXT, even if you are piggybacking off a larger number. Yeah, the last update from WrestleTix, 9,628. I can see that approaching 10,000 by tonight. We will see. And
Levesque announced 19,358 for Money in the Bank.
Okay, on the broadcast, they had stated 19,858. That was like a graphic, I think. Oh, well, maybe it was a lost in translation. 19,358. Okay, so
That's
were
what
like
I wrote down. Maybe.
Okay, you might be right. Anyway, it was about like 2,000 apart from the last WrestleTix update, roughly. The very, very successful weekend. Did you at all make it by the WWE store that was set up at the Rec Room? Did you? What did you see? I did not go by.
I did. Yeah, on my way towards Scotiabank Arena, I stopped by the Rec Room. It is an incredibly impressive, machine. I think is exactly how you should describe it when you're walking into any sort of WWE specific merchandising thing. I mean,
Luke Gallows knows.
That is correct. Yeah. There were no Luke Gallows shirts, so I don't know if the machine was working for him on this evening. But like we've been to the WrestleMania ones. This one was much more scaled down, but it had much more specific merchandise to Money in the Bank itself. I guess I am still impressed with the fact that like they would, for even like a 3-day weekend, create so much brand specific merch just for these 3 days. I mean, I guess for usual festivals and even like usual wrestling events, it's not that unusual, but the amount and the volume of Money in the Bank specific stuff that they had like raccoon stuffed plushies holding a Money in the Bank briefcase. And I guess for those unaware, we have a lot of raccoons in Toronto, so they're sort of an unofficial
Are we known
mascot.
for raccoons now?
I think so. Yes, we are.
I just kind of accept them as just a lifelong occurrence that we've had. I didn't know Toronto was especially susceptible to the raccoon population.
The WWE marketing team apparently did enough research and realized this is the animal that people here will identify with. As you mentioned, John,
maybe that's a reconciliation with the World Wildlife Fund.
Could be an Austin Matthews 316 shirt, like just numerous Toronto specific parodies of various items, and the belts were sold out. Like so many of them were sold out by the time I showed up, like before Money in the Bank. And these
did you get eyes on a Brett title? Were there any Brett?
The Brett was not sold out. The Brett title was still available, but man, they were doing a lot of business. Wow. And I'm sure by the weekend, I mean, yes, they'll have sold a lot, but I also feel like they'll probably have a lot of things like what I always ask, what's the waste that is being created here? Like how many Austin ASTON 316 shirts are they going to have unsold, and what are they going to do with them?
Well, the great thing about it is that I mean, if Austin Matthews ever got traded, I mean, they could just repurpose these for another city one day, or come back to Toronto with these shirts another time.
Blue and white, though? I don't know.
Oh, are they blue and white specific? Yeah. Okay, I didn't get to see it. Well,
it's an experience.
Maybe the carbon footprint from WWE shop is going to be immense after
$40, by the way, for that stuffed raccoon plushie.
Oh, how many did you get?
Yeah, my truck is full. Yeah.
You didn't go by the store in Philadelphia, did you?
I tried to. The line was way too long. I really want to
didn't
make an
either.
effort. Next year, I definitely will.
It's more interesting just for the observation, just to see like the scope of it, because it's a huge go-to for a lot of people that are coming into town. And I mean, just doing the event specific merchandise, it like you don't even have to advertise it as limited edition. You are telling your audience like, I am the only person that has access to this for this weekend, and it creates that instant demand just by catering it to that specific market. They're very smart. They did it with the Philadelphia Eagles in Philly. I'm sure next year in Vegas they will go crazy with merchandise. And we'll get into this with, the big story of the show is really John Cena and announcing that this retirement run. And I think like that is going to be another enormous marketing effort. And as much as I'm going to praise like the handling of that Sting retirement, one of our criticisms was in the lead up to it, just going to all these cities for the last time. I think we're going to see WWE just milk everything for all. Like Cena was teeing it up. My final Royal Rumble, my final Elimination Chamber. Dude, you are going to have every final John Cena, every final Kalamazoo, Michigan live event appearance. You are going to have so much Cena merchandise. There will be an empire created in 2025 around him.
There won't be enough colors in the rainbow to fulfill every t-shirt variation he's about to have of this new The Last Time Is Now
final
shirt.
time with the red shirt. Final time with the, maybe he'll go through all the retros with the new The Last Time Is Now, which is the catchphrase for this countdown, as we will say.
He's going to have to go through the pastels. He's going to have to go through every spectrum. You're going to get a full collection of like a Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon prism by the time this tour is over. Again, I remain incredibly like fascinated and even impressed at just seeing this machine at work. It was a huge machine before, but now it's amplified that much more so.
All right. Well, we're going to go into the show itself, and we had Michael Cole and Corey Graves out, and Trish Stratus, who was announced on Friday as the host for the event, and she is out to welcome everyone to the show, then introduces Samantha Irvin to recite the U.S. national anthem, and then Ryland James to do the Canadian national anthem as we go to our opening match, the men's Money in the Bank ladder match with Jey Uso, Andrade, Chad Gable, LA Knight, Carmelo Hayes, and Drew McIntyre. Lots of CM Punk chants throughout Drew's entrance and even throughout the match. They were even chanting for Punk during the pre-show as well, which was the 2-hour pre-show that they had. And Drew comes out, Chad Gable as well, like very heavy, you suck, really trying to attach that to Chad Gable as he makes the full transformation. I feel they're just going to retcon at some point, and he was the son of Kurt Angle that Jason Jordan was announced as.
That had to have been what that whole angle was leading up to, right?
It felt like at the time it was one where, well, it would just be too obvious, but let's make it Jason Jordan. And Chad Gable is now just like, his literally the way this presentation has gone, like he's pretty much been like handled as though he is the offspring of this man in character.
Very much so, yeah. I mean, it's the "you suck" thing, though. I think is just something the audience decided to do. Like, I don't think it was
probably will catch on. I could see other crowds mimicking. A lot of impressive stuff in this ladder match. They went 16 and a half minutes. Some highlights included Gable doing the Suzuki style armbar to McIntyre while hanging on the ladder, and then Andrade executes a springboard leg drop to Gable. Gable, who I think from a physical standpoint and standing out, I thought Chad Gable was the star of this match. He hit a chaos theory onto Carmelo Hayes, which came right on near the edge of the ladder, and then Gable suplexes a ladder onto Andrade, and clever chant was like, the crowd was very impressed by Gable at this point, but was chanting "you still suck" at him, even with his impressive feats. Tonight was the night of the ladder bridges and coming up with creative utilizations of it. They set up a bridge between the ring and the desk, and Drew McIntyre powerbombs Gable onto a ladder in the corner, then clears the ring with Hayes sent to the floor. He's climbing and is stopped by Jay. LA Knight climbs up, so we get the two trading punches with the crowd going yeet and yeah back to back. Then Andrade and Hayes are climbing, and that leads to a sunset bomb executed to Hayes onto the ladder bridge. Gable hits an overhead belly to belly to Knight. So he goes over the top and onto another ladder bridge. And as Gable is hanging, the ladder is removed from underneath him, like the Devon spot, and then Gable crashes to the floor. And Jay climbs up, nearly has it when Drew drills him with a ladder. Jay falls, and Drew unhooks the briefcase at 16 minutes and 31 seconds.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was a good Money in the Bank ladder match. Not necessarily one that any of us might be remembering or talking about years from now, but I thought it lived up to the standard, and certainly being in the crowd. One that like really highlighted how over at least LA Knight and Jey Uso and Drew McIntyre and Chad Gable were in a match like this. The four of them, I thought, like felt more well, McIntyre is a main eventer, but I mean the four of them, I would say, in terms of reaction, felt more substantial than just your usual mid-card sort of participant in a match like this. I thought they did a really good job of keeping Knight and Jay's rivalry in focus with their dueling yeet and yeah chants throughout the match. That was very well utilized. And I thought Carmelo and Andrade, as like probably the two least notable names in here, they took like very notable bumps and got themselves a bit more notice than they were before the match. With I think several people, even pointing out Andrade specifically as somebody who, like, this might have been the most significant thing he's done, even including WrestleMania, I have to say. Gable too garnered some really strong reactions for his involvement, including that crazy stomach first fall from the top. And overall, I just felt the crowd really engaged with this one, and especially several of the over characters.
Yeah, I was most impressed with Gable in the match. I thought just to in the arena, like the entrance for Jey Uso was just like, he is a force when he comes out. Like, it's a really impressive entrance live. Andrade had some very good moments in this. I don't know if it was anyone that kind of just broke through in a major way, but nonetheless. And I think it's also worth noting, like, there was nothing involving the Wyatts throughout this whole night, and specific to this match with Chad Gable. They seem to just reserve that for television. Probably would not have fit here for what they were doing. And so they go with Drew McIntyre, and I guess coming into this, a lot of people figured out what Drew's plans were going to be. And Drew, I mean, he probably tried to keep these plans very close to the vest, but in this online world in 2024, you have to be able to keep your plans in a private and secure area. And there's one place to go for that privacy to be protected.
Here at Post, we love using NordVPN to help us unlock cheaper prices for pay-per-views and access geo-block services like AEW+. I also personally use it every time I'm out working on my laptop and using public Wi-Fi. It's an extra level of protection I like to have to make sure my data isn't being sniffed from malicious users on the same network. If you have any concerns about browsing speeds, NordVPN happens to be CNET's fastest VPN of 2024, clocking an average speed loss of just 11.1%, compared to Surfshark's 17% and ExpressVPN's 24.8%. It costs less than $3 a month when you sign up through nordvpn.com/postwrestling, where Nord has offered our listeners 4 bonus months on top of all 2-year plans. And just for this campaign, all 2-year plans come with up to 20 gigabytes of travel data through Saley, a global eSIM service you can use in over 150 countries. Again, nordvpn.com/postwrestling, 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not happy. Get your bonus months, get your free Saley data voucher, and let Nord know you found them through us.
That's how CM Punk booked his travel to Canada.
Clearly, yeah, especially on the last minute. They're not cheap. So thank you very much, John. Excellent.
Next up was Sami Zayn and Bron Breakker for the Intercontinental Championship. One thing that was interesting on this show is that outside of the main event, nothing topped 16 minutes. And not to say that's like an insignificant time, but I just looked at this card, and knowing WWE, I fully anticipated a 3.5-hour show, and we came pretty close to that. But these match times were not, these were not crazy lengths attached to these matches. Like, this match gets 13, and that was a pretty widespread criticism I saw of people watching the broadcast, was the pacing on this show. A lot of downtime, and I could sense a bit of that in the arena, although they do have quite a lot in between the matches, that and the crowd that was, I think, pretty lively for this show. That I wouldn't say this dragged, but I might have had a different experience watching this with a lot of the downtime, that that even if it's a 5-match show, the length it's going, and there was maybe a little less wrestling than I thought on paper.
Personally, I didn't notice that myself. I certainly didn't really notice it among the crowd when I was down there. I felt like
And
there
this
was
was
an
a hot crowd throughout the night. Like we can't look at a match where like there was a lull or a dip. It was very like star oriented that they were like they had their people that they were gonna like the entrance that kind of set the tone for who the audience was, who they were hottest for. But that was consistent throughout the whole night, and they were hot by the end of this show. Come the 6 man.
there's enough engaging content that they play in the arenas, for the audience to react to and comment on. Um, and I don't know. I actually didn't feel this show really drag, in terms of just lack of in-ring content because I just kind of felt like there was always something to pay attention to. Um, I actually have more of a comment on pacing when I'm seeing the opposite of match, 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 match.
Mhm.
I actually prefer this, and to some people listening, that might be completely blasphemous, but
Just admit it. You
that's
like to
my
go to the
preference.
bathroom.
What? What?
You like to have a bathroom break at some point during
Oh,
a pay per view.
well, just time to
Sorry,
digest.
that was set up poorly.
Just time to digest, and for me especially, typing my notes and catching up, and I don't know, possibly grabbing a drink, or yes, go using the facilities. I think is actually, to me, a better viewing experience than just having to pay attention constantly. But for somebody else, that might be the opposite.
So Breaker's in control early on, and then does the push up deal where Sami Zayn kicks out at 2, an obvious nod to the Machine, Mark Hominick,
um, okay, sure. Yeah.
for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, for sure.
Breaker spears him on the floor and then is caught by a blue thunderbomb in the ring. Zayn gets a 2 count, and then Braun does his scale to the top for the Frankensteiner, and then Zayn leaps the leapfrogs on the floor, and as Braun is running around the ring for the spear, but this time Braun is ready and he doesn't crash into the steps like he did on Monday. And that leads to a leaping clothesline off the apron onto the desk by Breaker, and back into the ring. He's hit with an exploder. Zayn tries for the haluva, but he's cut off, and then Zayn survives a power slam and stops a spear with a boot to the face, and then lands the haluva kick and wins the match in 13 minutes and 13 seconds, gets the big babyface win. But I think everyone was looking at like Braun Breaker in a big WWE pay-per-view PLE match. How did you think Braun looked in this match? And were you surprised at all by the outcome?
I was surprised by the clean win. Yeah, because they've been doing such a great job of promoting Braun as a Goldberg level threat. Somebody who walks through people, and they've been very convincing with that. So I thought this match would be very similar, even if like it ended with a Sami win or like, I don't know, a lengthier sort of battle. I expected Braun to be that much more dominant. Instead, I didn't think we had that. I thought we had what amounted to like a pretty typical pro wrestling back and forth, and it even ended with a clean Sami Zayn win. So that did surprise me. I can't expect this feud to continue and them building to a rematch somehow, but to me, it did take a little bit of the edge that they built so well for Braun. Um, it got a great reaction line for almost everything, with this being Sami Zayn, of course. But for me, the match lacked like a certain element to make it feel that special. Like good match, but standard. And on a 5-match show, I kind of look for something in every match to stand out a bit more to feel special. But this I thought was fine, but felt average to me.
I think I'm had a lot of similar thoughts to you. Like I was looking at this, like this could have been the match of the show going in, and I think that this one, I'm with you. I thought it was good showing. I don't really have too much negative to say about it. I just felt like it was maybe on the shorter end of what I was expecting, and I think that there would be a higher ceiling for these two that they can have. But really, there was like, again, the crowd was into this, and you got the babyface win. I would be curious to see if this one if they're going to stretch this one out. This didn't feel as though it's one and done, even though the ending was fairly decisive. But maybe they will
Yeah.
find a wrinkle to come back with this one in 4 weeks.
I'm just curious how they would, have all of this. Like to me, I think the point of all of this is to elevate Braun Breaker, And I just don't necessarily see this sort of finish coming out of a match without Braun eventually getting the upper hand and actually conquering Sami Zayn. At the same time, Sami Zayn is clearly somebody that they consider a very valuable property. They made a big deal out of his comedy show. He sort of is, outside of Kevin Owens, I would say tonight, the hometown guy. Maybe also outside of DIY as well this week.
Of course, Toronto's own Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. They earlier in the day announced Bad Blood with 1D, not Bad to the Blood, taking place October 5th in Atlanta at the State Farm Arena. So that will be the October show. So it sounds like they're going to go from Bash in Berlin the end of August, and then I don't think they haven't announced anything for September, and then this would be October, and then you'll probably get Saudi Arabia and Survivor Series to round out the year.
What was the pay-per-view in September? Do you remember, John? Or October, like this period?
Last year they did, I have to look back, because Extreme Rules was October last year.
Yeah, Fastlane was October 7th last year. So,
was there an Extreme Rules last year?
Oh, I said Fastlane. Did I say Extreme Rules?
No, I was saying Extreme Rules. Like, was there not an
Extreme
Extreme Rules last year?
Rules 2023. Let me just see. I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was October the previous year at least. So I guess they flipped that for Fast.
Hell in a Cell in November? Wait, sorry. Let me just. I'll look this up. You
all right? It's all good. But that's our updated pay-per-view calendar. Trish comes back out and introduces the surprise guest for the evening, John Cena, who comes out to a big reaction and immediately announces his retirement from the WWE. It's like, oh my goodness, we've seen the end of John Cena. Well, wait, there's more. And the crowd is chanting no, and he explains why he has chosen to make this announcement in Canada. And he talks about the waves of prosperity that the company has gone through, while also eras of hardship, where only the hardcore fans stand by your side. And whether WWE was hot or WWE was cold, Canadians always showed up, and this makes it the perfect place for this announcement. He mentions Raw moving to Netflix, and he's going to be there. Next year will be his final year. January will be his final Royal Rumble. February will be his final Elimination Chamber. And Las Vegas will be his final WrestleMania, the site of the world's largest toga party. That is where his final WrestleMania will take place. And then gives a heavy push that he will answer all the questions, almost all of the questions, at the press conference, and thanks the fans, and they are planning something unforgettable, the tagline being, "The last time is now," and it goes, and his wife was in the front row, who he gave a kiss to before going to the back, and then clarified at the presser that WrestleMania will not be his last match. In fact, he's going to work all next year. He is planning to be around January to December, and he's aiming at 30 to 40 dates, he said. So it looks like he will be. So instead of just building to the big, like, Mania farewell, like, it seems like they are going to build. Like, you could really build to a show at the end of next year that is just promoted as like Ric Flair's last match, John Cena's last match. That should really be the name of the show. And they could probably
still do that for the December PLE.
Yeah, and they haven't been doing a December one for several years. I think a lot of this is going to be tied to Cena being one of the keys on Netflix and drawing people in this whole countdown taking place there. And Cena is someone that, I mean, you put his visual on that tile on Netflix, a lot of cross promotion of all of his different vehicles that he's involved in. But yeah, 2025 is going to be heavily centered around John Cena and this very lengthy farewell tour.
We should maybe talk about some of the notes about this from the press conference as well, where he said the sort of design of it was him suggesting the idea to the WWE, but the WWE coming back to him about the specific timing that they I felt it was right to do it. And I suppose very much mentioning Netflix, both in this speech and also in the press conference, as one of the reasons why WWE felt this was good time. He is an international star. Netflix, Triple H has repeated several times now, this is very much like sort of a gateway to an international boom for this company that's even bigger than maybe what it's currently experiencing. And using Cena as what almost sounds like if not a weekly, then certainly in many cases a bi-weekly occurring character over your Netflix product, both on presumably Raw, SmackDown, or certainly pay-per-views, PLEs, is probably a fascinating and really really great way of garnering that sort of interest. The number of dates is very surprising to me because it suggests that he'll be committing to WWE to like a pretty like loaded schedule, certainly the most loaded that he's had in years. And does it mean he takes a step away even from Hollywood in order to focus on this for an extended amount of time? The balancing act of making sure he stays injury free is going to be that much more important. But he can work a Cena style match, pretty much in any town and maybe get away with it. But I'd be curious to see how much physical risk he does take if this is, going to consist of a lot of wrestling as well.
Yeah, and for someone who's not even their future is in Hollywood, their present is in Hollywood in Cena. It's an enormous sacrifice if you're clearing your calendar for this. Like I'm sure there's going to be like I don't think you're going to see him every single week. It might allow for some projects, but like any significant vehicle, I don't think they're going to want to be risking the chance of him being hurt. And I think with Cena for this year, obviously from this guy is going to be very effective in all of these markets, especially when you're getting towards like the run up to that final match. In terms of matches as well, like is it a case of like less is more? I think that, he did state 30 to 40 dates, not so much 30 to 40 matches. Like you want to make this feel special that Cena is wrestling. And maybe you get him on a bunch of the PLEs. I mean, it's going to be very strategic. Obviously, it's a year where you're establishing this on Netflix, so doing things on TV is very important as well, even more so than just drawing like the traditional way towards a pay-per-view.
Do you know how many dates like Roman Reigns was on like last year? Like, did he do 30? Like, did he do 40?
I don't think he would have hit that number. No.
Right. So this will be more engaged than a Roman Reigns schedule as champion, right? So I and we see like with Roman's sort of like in-ring activity, you can get by being just a character without having wrestling so much, and I think that would suit Cena pretty well, both in terms of his what his physical limitations are due to his career, due to his age, but also to maximize his value for the times he is going to wrestle. So I'm curious to see how they'll treat it. Let me just also say this was a hell of a speech from him tonight. I think it always feels special as a Canadian, as a Torontonian. It always feels special when an international celebrity puts over your town and your country so strong. And I thought the words that he gave about this particular market in Canada always being around, between the lulls of the company and also its highs, like they felt very genuine. And it's a sort of sentiment that you can only kind of come up with through experience and time. And so to me, it felt very real. So it completely lit up this crowd, when he was saying these words. I definitely think that this is going to be an example of how modern day WWE under Paul Levesque will be treating a retirement story. This will certainly be one of the biggest tests, I think, of this regime creatively today.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's very likely that you build to this final match in like some kind of stadium setting. Like I think they're going to shoot for like a giant event that they believe. They don't like WrestleMania is going to be WrestleMania. We don't need to mortgage a Cena retirement on a show that we already have, like where we feel confident enough of filling Allegiant Stadium 2 nights in a row that we can do a separate show with Cena and get the benefit of Cena throughout the year and map that out and all the different directions you can go. Like you can do the chasing the WWE's title record that they promote. Like there's all these different options. But a key of it is, as you mentioned, Wai, it is like staying healthy. And I'm certain that he's going to want to go out there and, amp up like what some of the matches that we have seen in these last few years that have been very careful. I think we can categorize them as.
Sure, but we know even at an advanced stage, you could be careful, take the wrong step, or I don't know, jump off of a ramp and break your ankle and be out for months, right?
Are we going to see John Cena's final Money in the Bank ladder match? Is that going to be one of the last?
Wasn't he kind of teasing that in the presser?
He was stating his last everything.
So he was stating, somebody was asking him, do you think you'll beat your title record? And Cena said, I have to earn my shot. And that means getting wins and also finding ways to get there, like the Royal Rumble, like the Elimination Chamber, like the Money in the Bank. So maybe you do see John Cena in a Money in the Bank.
John Cena's final Beat the Clock challenge.
That should be how he ends his career.
This is how, okay.
The way he entered.
There you go. Just writes itself. Judgment Day is in the clubhouse, and Damian Priest warns none of them are to get involved, even if Drew comes out. So, famous last words. Damian Priest and Seth Rollins. I was a little surprised that this was not ending the show, because especially after Drew won, I thought like that will be your end to the show, but they opted to go a different way, which I can understand based on how things went. So this match, I thought they were having a very good match for the beginning portions here. We see Rollins with a buckle bomb, and then Priest comes back with a power bomb of his own, and then these spinning roundhouse kicks that are landing. And Seth counters a South of Heaven with a pedigree attempt, but he takes the back body drop. Rollins then rebounds with a stomp. That gets a 2 count. Razor's Edge by Priest for a 2. And then we have Rollins going to the top, hits the superplex, and he's trying for the follow-up Falcon Arrow, but it's fought by Priest. Finally, Seth hits it, and we get a 1, 2, and Priest does not kick out, and everything just stands still here because the crowd is all buzzing as though Seth should be winning this match, and the ref doesn't know what to do to avoid counting 3. And so then we just cut to Drew's music, and he comes down, and everyone's attention is now on him, and he announces he is cashing in his Money in the Bank briefcase, and it turns into a triple threat. And as he sets up for the Claymore, Seth nails him with a super kick, and then there's a future shock hit to Seth, so that takes Rollins out. Priest cuts off the Claymore, and Drew nearly takes a South of Heaven, but he stops, hits a Claymore to Priest. When CM Punk comes out through the crowd, place goes nuts, and he nails Drew with all of these chair shots and grabs the belt and nails Drew with the belt, sits on the desk with the title, and then a South of Heaven leads to Damian Priest retaining in 15 minutes and 45 seconds. A lot going on here. So much so that this guy who probably spent $1,000 on this front row seat needed to capture it with a selfie.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Hey, and I think that's our friend Donovan standing next to him.
Oh my goodness, that is Donovan. I
wow.
think.
Check it out.
That. Yeah. He wanted to take it in real time. He don't want to leave his phone to tell him what happened.
Yeah, a lot happening in this one. I don't know what we should even talk about first. Should we talk about the match itself first?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think everyone's gonna kind of lament just the non-kick out at the end, because I did think the match was going very well. I think it was also one of those matches where, especially once Drew won, no one was going to take anything too definitive until something happened, because everything was teased for such. And realistically, this played out how I think everyone thought it would once Drew won the briefcase. I think the idea of Drew trying to cash in and getting thwarted again by Punk was a logical outcome, and that's what they went with here. They didn't try to swerve what the thought was out there.
No, but I did think that they would drag it out a bit more into either a lengthier story or just using it as a device to create several more teases and memorable moments leading to the eventual thwarting. Instead, I guess we should just talk about the cash in whole thing first. And
here's the question I would throw to you, Wai, is that the argument coming out of Clash at the Castle and having Punk screw Drew in Scotland was, well, their program's hot enough, it doesn't need the title.
Yep. The
question out of this one would be, this program's so hot, did it need the Money in the Bank attached to it?
I personally don't think so. The argument, I think, is always when you're doing something like this, especially with a failed cash-in, is that was this a waste opportunity for somebody else, like a Jey Uso, like an LA Knight, like a Chad Gable, who could have used the device to be able to, use it throughout the course of at least several months to elevate their status and to get that much more of a spotlight.
or even like a defined story for the summer. Like it doesn't even have to be months. It could just be weeks, if not like the summer.
Yeah.
That was a lot of my thought here. Was by the end of this, was this any more heated than this program already was? And
No.
I'm sure they'll have a great segment with Drew reacting on Monday, and this should likely set up SummerSlam. I think they'd be nuts if Punk is not ready to go at this point.
Well,
But
they
that
already
was kind of my thought at the end of this is, okay, it was kind of a replication of last month, and I don't know how much more juice you got out of it, and you did have to like give up this this storyline device.
What it did convey to me though was that they probably already have their title picture set across both men's championships over the next year, and they might not involve anybody on the come up. You know, they might not involve like an LA Knight, they might not involve a Jey Uso or a Chad Gable ascending those ranks. And therefore, that eliminates those options. If you're going to eventually have somebody fail at a cash in anyway, because they don't intend on having anybody cash in successfully, give it to Drew McIntyre and let him fail and give the heat to CM Punk. But I was maybe also a little surprised that they did it so soon. But I could also understand like, hey, like why wait and let's just decide to like, you know, put it on the pay-per-view. What is it? SummerSlam is not that far away.
4 weeks.
4 weeks, yeah. So I guess the time to do it would have been now if you were going to have Drew fail and to heat up that particular match. It did just feel to me like very exciting, you know, on the evening and certainly in the building, but felt like a little bit of a, you know, creatively, I wonder if like more could have been done with it. I think there's also a lot of criticism of why a character as smart as Drew McIntyre would decide to cash in to make it a three-way without thinking for sure that CM Punk wasn't going to be an element, or at least having enough of a backup plan so that whenever Punk did come out, he would be able to control that somehow. That I think is a bit of a failing of like the way that they, you know, characterize the Drew McIntyre role here.
The spot was also like he took a superplex. It's like, okay, now's my time.
Exactly.
Superplex.
Well, maybe he just saw, hey, like there's a lot of confusion in there. Somebody was supposed to kick out and didn't. This is
He's
my
concussed.
time. Yeah. Let's also talk about that. Obviously, you know, the botch is unfortunate. I thought the match was going well, but you know, didn't really even hit that level before it was supposed to get there. And it also makes you wonder, like, did they have more match in store before this moment? Because the Falcon Arrow spot usually does not lead to any sort of match. Or was Drew always supposed to, you know, interrupt here? I've seen people speculate that did the music hit late? And was the music supposed to get rid of the kick out? I did also hear Wade Keller say that he heard that Priest was simply supposed to kick out and he forgot to, or just like missed the one count and thought it was a 2 when instead it was a 3. You can tell the look on Damian Priest's face immediately after the spot and certainly after the match, after the three-way. He was taking it very hard on himself, and Triple H said as much at the press conference.
I mean, I took it like if you read between the lines of what Paul Levesque was stating, I think that would be the conclusion you drew, is that it was just an error in judgment, and he
put the referee in an impossibly tough spot if that was the case.
Yeah, like, you know, for the longest time, you always hear that, you know, the referees are supposed to call it as a shoot, and like that's
Can
great
you really
in
do
theory,
that
but
here?
in practice, it's a totally different ball game. That when you're talking about this in a live setting such as this is, and it's an unfortunate issue. It's also worth noting they did advertised Damian Priest for the press conference, and he was swapped out in favor of CM Punk. And there were also, I mean, definitely timing issues on this press conference with everyone going long, and this ended up being a 90-minute presser instead of the usual hour. But they did put up, they were advertising Damian Priest at one point, and then it was Punk who ended up in that spot. So yeah, I think this one, and also kind of lost, and granted, I'm sure they'll make a big focus on this on Monday, is the story coming out of this that Seth cannot challenge for this title now, which you can attribute to Punk being the one that, you know, ultimately led to this outcome.
Yeah, and there was a lot of camera direction specific to show Seth Rollins being angry at CM Punk, so they're reigniting that feud using that storyline point in particular.
How many programs does Punk have upon?
He's got Rollins, he's got Priest. Who else?
I mean, he's
Hangman Page, the Young Bucks. Just run down the list. But those are two big ones: Rollins and Priest that he's got coming up.
Yeah, and I mean for the immediate future, like Rollins does kind of feel like odd man out here because
for SummerSlam, you mean?
Can't do a rematch with Damian Priest per this storyline unless they do some way out of that stipulation. And I would not be inserting him with Drew and Punk like that after all this time. I think that one generates a singles match, so it makes you wonder where Rollins will be, and maybe he's just kind of hovering over that, and that's going to be for Germany or something is where Seth is. Like these 5-match shows, you're not going to have all your main players in play for every single show. Granted, SummerSlam may have a lengthier card.
Yeah. So going into Raw, I'm very curious to see if they make any mention of the kick out or lack thereof, and do they try to explain it somehow in storyline? If so, how can they? It might even just be better to just completely ignore it in this case. And also, do they start the build towards Gunther versus Priest? It also makes me wonder, like,
well, they hit that one hard right after this. Like, they had a big trailer for SummerSlam. Like, they were starting to promote that one heavily as soon as this match ended.
But does Priest hold on to the title longer than we might expect, just to kind of like maintain this Seth Rollins can't challenge for the championship clause as a storyline point? Because I think we're all assuming, at least I'm assuming, Gunther to beat Priest at SummerSlam. But that takes a bit of the edge away from whatever Seth Rollins has to suffer if it's only a 4-week. Hey, you can't challenge for the championship in 4 weeks.
Yeah. It'll be. I think you should have like some follow up on Monday, and there might be some course correction on how this was executed.
Rollins has to get a rematch. Well, that'll be excuse. This was a very controversial finish. I deserve a rematch.
Next was the women's Money in the Bank ladder match with Naomi, Tiffany Stratton, Chelsea Green, Io Sky, Zoe Stark, and Lyra Valkyria. Very big reactions for Tiffany Stratton and Chelsea Green, who was out in a Canadian-themed outfit.
Babyface of the match for sure, Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, they were all behind Chelsea Green. I thought Io Sky got a pretty good reaction as well.
Tiffany Stratton as well.
Yeah, I mentioned Stratton. She got a big reaction too coming out. So, I mean, these women did a lot in this match. I think they took a lot more risks than in the men's match. Some of the spots we saw was Stratton with a dive off of the top onto everybody on the floor. Lyra gets hung upside down the ladder as Io is delivering stomps, and then Naomi climbs, and she's climbing up both ladders, and they pull the ladders away, so she's doing the splits, but still is throwing off punches, and then delivers a DDT to Zoe Stark from the splits position on the ladder. I thought overall that this was a pretty good, like Naomi added a lot to this match, and she's sort of been in this tough position ever since coming back, in all honesty. And this was a match that played to a lot of her strengths.
She always gets these sort of roles, though, whether it be the Rumble or was she in the Chamber this year? She was, right?
I believe so.
It's been a long year already, everybody. But she I think she is known for her creativity and her certainly ability to do the splits, and they found a very unique way to employ both of those tactics and executed it perfectly, I felt.
Naomi pulls out a table, and this place just went insane. Stratton and Green set up a pair of tables on the floor, and they just let everyone see these tables and realize someone's going to die going through these. Then there are 2 ladders set up in the ring, along with 2 ladder bridges, and they are just setting up this, just a death trap for someone. Stark sends Lyra off the ladder, and she lands on the bridge. Then Chelsea hits an unprettier to Naomi on top of the ladder bridge. Io Sky is up with Zoe Stark, and this was probably the most dangerous thing on this entire show. She holds her in place, almost like she's going to come down for a power slam, but the way she goes down, the best way I could describe this would be like a Rikishi driver off the ladder on top of the ladder bridge, and this just looked insane. And then Io lands on the floor, and she just like DDP yogas herself with this like back contortion, and someone with back pain. This was the most painful thing that looked like on the entire show.
Maybe you should get on that DDP yoga.
Maybe I will. This was nuts, and this was the end of Zoe Stark for the match. Then Green is capitalizing. She's the last one standing. So she climbs this ladder, and they go in tight on Chelsea as she is touching the briefcase. The place is going nuts when Tiffany appears and knocks Chelsea off for the massive, like the Bubba Ray spot, where she clears the top rope and crashes through these two tables. Massive fall for Chelsea Green, which was a similar spot she took in the Queen of the Mountain match in TNA 2 years ago. And Stratton is left to climb and take the briefcase at 16 minutes and 51 seconds. Like there were some issues early on, but I thought like the 6 women, they took a lot of risks in this match. Like this was more of like the variety stunts that you have kind of become accustomed to in this ladder match, and some big moments that you have to play off of.
I didn't even notice the Vought International branding on the Money in the Bank briefcase. That's John. That's a reference to the Boys.
That's one of the characters in the Boys.
It's actually a fictional company.
Of course, that's what I was going to clarify. Yes, I was
really
semi-informed of this.
Yes, I thought this was a really enjoyable match. Now it was
live, like this crowd, they were super into this match.
Now this was not the prettiest match. That unprettier certainly did look unpretty in my opinion on the steps.
I mean, as advertised, right?
Exactly. The Samoan drop, the botched Samoan drop, from I believe it was Zoe to. Man, I don't have the specific names of the people involved, but anyway, it didn't look very pretty, but it delivered in excitement and certainly atmosphere. They made very effective use of the crowd's favoring of Chelsea Green here, and they couldn't have really hit you over the head more with her coming out in Canadian colors. They also gave her like a fear of heights gimmick throughout the match. I did not pay that close attention to the CN Tower climb skit that they had on the pre-show. But I think that might have even played into their thinking of like they had Chelsea climb up to the CN Tower, do the edge walk, and then she now has a fear of heights in climbing for the Money in the Bank. I couldn't hear commentary, everybody, so please forgive me if some of that was miscommunicated or if I'm just even reaching here, but no pun intended. But Chelsea, I thought, was very effectively used as a crowd favorite, and the fear of height storyline, I think, gave her like a good sympathetic babyface type of like role, and they used her very effectively in the finish here. Like the moment she climbed up there with the rest of the field clear, everybody was reacting huge, making way perfectly for Tiffany Stratton to deliver. First of all, one of the biggest bumps of the entire match to Chelsea through those tables. I thought that was a very effectively, like, I think, hidden and then executed towards the end, and gave a lot of great attention to Chelsea. Good creativity through Naomi's splits. Not all the spots look clean in this one, but everything to me like delivered very satisfying impacts and lived up to, I think, the level of creativity and risk and suspense you expect out of a Money in the Bank match.
And then backstage, Jackie was interviewing Trish when she is interrupted by Tiffany Stratton, and Tiffany essentially said that your Hall of Fame ring signals that your time is over. My time has just begun. So that seemed to be our the one angle involving Trish teasing some kind of a match at some point.
Yeah, when asked at the press conference, Stratton basically said, "Yeah, I'm looking forward to having a match in the future with Trish Stratus." So, they seemed like they had, pretty decent chemistry, I think, playing, or at least Trish mocking her character. This would, I guess, signify Trish playing a babyface upon return. So I'm kind of curious to see, like, she's retained a lot of that heel character energy. So I'm curious to see how she might be able to transfer that to like a babyface role.
Do you realize Trish's retirement match in this building was 18 years ago?
Do you realize, she might not be very happy for people pointing this out, but Trish is almost twice the age of Tiffany Stratton.
I'm just like, when you realize how young Trish was when they promoted her retirement match, I mean, it's insane.
Oh, it's pretty crazy. Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe the ceiling was very different for a female wrestler in this company at the time, beyond that age. Yeah.
Main event was the 6-man tag. It was, in fact, Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and Jacob Fatu, although Tonga Loa was in the corner for the Bloodline against Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, and Randy Orton. And man, giant chance of "We Want Roman" at the beginning as Bloodline enters and during the match at various points. And we had Owens get the tag early, and he's just running wild on Tama Tonga. Certainly, I would say, like, he became a big focus of the match after his address on Friday about his mother and being, he was the I thought to many he was like not only the Canadian representative in this match, but also with that story, he became a larger focus of the match and the guy they generated the heat on for a good portion of it.
I think a lot of his, certainly his offense was a lot more emotionally charged with that sort of subtext in mind, and yeah, you could definitely feel it.
So you had a lot to accomplish in this match because the match they are building to is Solo Sikoa, but this was also the introduction to a WWE audience of Jacob Fatu, and you had to make him look like this killer. And they had several spots designed for him, including popping up from a draping DDT from Randy, who is setting up for the RKO. He turns, and there's Jacob Fatu standing. Crowd was very animated with their chants towards Solo Sikoa. They get the advantage on Owens for a long time, and they're chanting, "Fight, Owens, fight," as he battles Tama. And then Solo knocks Cody off the apron, and Tonga Loa yanks Orton off the apron, and he was down on the ground for about an hour. Fatu then misses Owens in the corner. Cody gets the big tag, and he's executing dives. He goes to the floor and back body drops Jacob Fatu into the timekeeper's area. Solo then misses Cody and takes out referee Jason Ayers and hits the crossroads onto Solo. Owens follows with a frog splash and Randy with an RKO as Sikoa is down. They take them to the floor. Owens hits a splash off the barricade, putting Fatu through the desk after a stunner to Tama, and then Kevin Owens is in the ring. His back is to Tonga Loa, who enters, goes for the low blow, which did not quite register, so he had to hit a second one, and then an RKO to Loa, an RKO to Tama. Samoan Spike takes out Randy, and then Cody is in. He hits two crossroads to Solo when Jacob Fatu stops the third attempt, and Jacob hits the Impaler DDT onto Cody, helps up Solo, who lands the Samoan Spike, and Jacob Fatu sends the referee in as Solo Sikoa pins Cody Rhodes, and I think all but sets up this title match between the two coming out of this as the Ulafala is placed onto Solo Sikoa by Jacob Fatu, and the four put their ones in the air, and they promote Jacob Fatu as the game changer.
Yeah. I thought it was an okay match, to be honest. Like, for a main event of a PLE at this point on a 5-match show, like I felt with the Sami Zayn match, I think this match needed to feel a lot more special. I was looking in this match to see how strong they would put over not just, Jacob Fatu, not just Solo Sikoa, but the Bloodline in general. And yes, they had them like basically dominate the match on a Kevin Owens, for instance, throughout the majority of it. But it wasn't to the level that I think it wasn't enough for me to view this group as the sort of company-wide threat that, the original Bloodline certainly was. And maybe just speaking more specifically to a Jacob Fatu or even a Solo Sikoa, they gave Jacob Fatu some good spots, some good spotlight. They kind of credited the finish to him. I thought he looked good, but I can't say it was like the type of performance that made him look as strong as I think the character that they built up. And I wonder if this was maybe the best type of match to debut him. Certainly, having him appear on a pay-per-view in the main event is a great way of telling people, hey, you should pay attention to this guy. But I also think a more dominant performance, a more decisive, clear victory from a Jacob Fatu. Imagine Fatu beating Randy Orton in 2-3 minutes, that to me would be an incredible way of building him. Instead, they kind of mapped out a pretty standard professional wrestling match with the Bloodline even losing a visionary fall here before actually getting this Jacob Fatu victory. And I understand wanting to protect Cody, certainly. I even understand wanting to protect Orton. But I think this needed to be a bit more definitive for everybody involved, including Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu.
Yeah, I thought this one was tough in that you make Jacob Fatu out to be this unhinged monster that it draws you to the match that you want to see as Cody and Jacob Fatu, and that's not the match you're building to. You did have to make Solo Sikoa that focus and giving him the fall at the end. I think they were trying to achieve a lot here with even if you had saved Jacob Fatu making his debut on this show, I think again that takes a lot of the spotlight away from Solo and suddenly it's placed upon Jacob Fatu. I like the match. This was definitely the longest match on the show. And I thought it was good. It got to where you were going. By the end of it, I think this is a very, if you're into the story, then this was the next logical chapter to set up this match for SummerSlam. Cody and Solo does not feel like this just can't wait for match.
No.
I think that the TV is going to have to really build that up. And this is a big step up for Solo Sikoa because Cody has like big matches on big shows, and that's what's going to be expected in 4 weeks' time in a stadium, no less.
Yeah. I also like I guess I do understand like wanting to save Cody for the main event. I think maybe in hindsight it was better that Rollins and Priest didn't end it, but I also think like because of the money in the bank implications, because of CM Punk, I actually think that match probably should have ended the show. If not, the women's Money in the Bank match maybe should have ended instead as well. This to me like felt almost a bit more appropriate for a television main event by the end of it, rather than a show closing main event without that much to me like significant result coming out of it.
Yeah. Overall, I think that it seemed like people were pretty satisfied with the match. I think if you were there live, I just think the crowd alone was going to leave you with a very positive, like everything was, nothing was, I thought, bad on this show. I didn't think there was one match that was just like, you have to go out of your, let's put it this way. There was nothing approaching the top matches you got last weekend on the Forbidden Door show. There wasn't a Swerve Ospreay. There wasn't a Danielson Shingo. There wasn't a Zack Sabre Jr. Orange Cassidy on this show. But I think the 5 matches, they were good matches, and they did set up a lot for SummerSlam coming out of this, which is 1 month turnaround.
They gave you like significant surprise on the show. The biggest thing being John Cena's retirement announcement. They also gave you
that was the biggest thing. Coming out of the show, John Cena was the bigger thing than any of the match outcomes.
It's what the show will be remembered for, I think, in the future. They also gave you a failed cash-in attempt and a CM Punk appearance, so those are the most significant events, other than, having Tiffany Stratton win the briefcase, of course. So all of those things I felt were more significant than what we ended up getting in the main event. In terms of like delivering satisfying, I think, storyline material, I thought the show did deliver that. But as like a 5-match experience, I thought it was a lacking PLE.
Quick notes from the press conference. We had John Cena come out. We had Tiffany Stratton, CM Punk, and then Paul Levesque. And this was spread out over about 90 minutes because John Cena went really long. He just kept taking more and more questions. So then CM Punk felt the need to do the same thing, and he took more and more questions.
It's sort of the babyface thing to do, is to just like, hey, like I'm gonna extend my time and give more of me to you. And all of them kind of wanted that.
Well, the production person was just trying her best to like wrap them up and keep on time, but they kept things going. I did ask John Cena about Vince McMahon. He did not want to talk about Vince McMahon, but I felt it was a relevant question to ask, and
his response was, "You can."
He wants to look
Google.
forward.
He wants to look forward. Spoke a bit about TKO in that regard, and then said, "If you really want my answer, you can Google it." So I guess it does confirm he still stands by a lot of what he said on the Howard Stern show.
Back in February, when he addressed this on Howard Stern a few weeks after the case had been filed. I guess in terms of other notes, like we went over the business notes that Paul Levesque focused on. Paul Levesque was asked by Brandon Thurston about the Janelle Grant case being on pause and any cooperation with the federal investigation, and just said he is not going to speak about legal things. And I think other than that, he noted no significant injuries that he's aware of coming out of the show beyond just the regular bumps and bruises, and really went overboard, not overboard, but just a big emphasis on John Cena and how big of a send-off they want to provide for Cena, stating that he will automatically be going into the Hall of Fame when he chooses to do so. And I think we did get clarity in the Cena thing, because I came out of it was now in the press box, it was very hard to hear when anyone was speaking. But I think a lot of people, he never stated like December is the end date. So naturally, he never said WrestleMania was his last match, but you were left with that implication that WrestleMania would be the last match. In fact, he will be doing the whole year in some form or fashion.
Yeah, and I understand like a promo in a live setting wasn't necessarily the place to maybe give you that much detail, but he did give it in the press conference and almost like volunteered it. He said, ends at December. And he also sort of like said beyond that, after that December,
he'll have a relationship with WWE, but he said he's not going to do any no guest ref spots, nothing physical, but he will be attached to the WWE family. But he's looking at this as a hard line retirement, like to the point he's not going to be dancing around like involvement in the ring.
That surprises me, the fact that like he's ruling out the idea of even doing a guest ref spot, which I think like at this point anybody can do, really, until at any age. Like, is he even ruling out taking a bump, beyond that retirement date?
Listen, I mean, it's he's going to be full-time doing like Hollywood stuff that, he's getting older, like he's going to turn 48 next year. So I mean, it's probably we'll see what happens. Retirements are always forecasted one way. They don't always turn out that way. And he even brought that up, that sometimes a lot of retirements are disingenuous in pro wrestling, and he has the Mick Foley mentality that he wants his to be a real one.
Yeah, with Levesque, I felt it notable with his clarification of the Damian Priest incident. I thought Levesque came across really well here in like showing, first of all, acknowledging that there was a mistake and basically saying this is live, this is human error, things like this happen, taking ownership and just acknowledging actually what happened here. But then I think also showing great sympathy for Damian Priest, and like specifically I think taking the audience to sort of like what the mindset of a performer might be after something like that, knowing how hard any of them would be, knowing that that's all they could probably be focusing on. So I thought like he came across like a really great head coach, talking about a star player who just had a bad day on the field. I'm trying to come up with my sports analogies, and
he also had a really funny line at the end. I think it was something about earlier in the night, and he was just trying to remember something. He's like, I feel like I'm just at the end of one of those 7-hour pay-per-views. Yeah. And he immediately realized, he's like, don't read anything into that. He's like, I've headlined some of those 7-hour pay-per-views. And I thought that was a funny line, and he immediately envisioned how that was going to be interpreted.
I actually think it was a good thing he did clarify, because I definitely think that would have been a line that several outlets might have, or the internet would have perceived as a dig. So yeah, he was aware, and it made for like a fun little interaction.
Guys, we're going to keep calls short because I am up against the clock here. But let's do some really quick calls with thoughts from people that have been waiting.
Hey, thank you guys for calling in here, members of the Post Wrestling Cafe. Where this month is G1 month, so sign up right now and get all that bonus content. Let's start things off with Alex. Hey, Alex, welcome.
Hi guys, thank you for doing a review during middle of the day for the UK viewers. I'm very appreciative of that, and I can't believe a G1 climax coming soon. Hopefully be more of the same.
Had you in mind specifically as we
thank
this,
you.
So,
yes.
Good beloved.
What'd you think about the show, Alex?
I thought it was really it was enjoyable. Wasn't one of the top PLEs I've seen this year from WWE, but I did think that the ladder match, the way that WWE seems to approach these ladder matches compared to, we just had the TNT Championship ladder match last week with AEW. AEW seemed more of a big bomb, these big crashing brutal things, but WWE with these most stipulation matches seems very rehearsed and very creative, and it seems sometimes at the expense of realism, but I think for the most part I'm quite satisfied with most of the creative spots they come up with. But do you have like a preference when it comes to a ladder match that's like brutal and just heavy spots, or stuff that you've never seen before? Is there a preference?
So I guess is the question like, do we like seeing people actually get hurt, or like, do we like to see them play it a bit safer? I
wouldn't categorize either as like safe or unsafe. I mean, there is still a lot. For me, I'm really numbed out to ladder matches in general, because I think there is a great risk. I don't care what company you're in, and I think it's harder to get something out of that. Like maybe for Chelsea Green, like that spot is going to be replayed over and over, and it's going to be something significant. But we see so many ladder spots that they just come and go, and we're sort of numb to them, and it's a great risk that you're attaching to them, that there's such a proclivity of ladder matches. It's harder to stand out. So I'm just like, I can appreciate the work. I don't necessarily have a preference of like one versus the other. Like there's good ladder matches and there's bad ladder matches, and it's harder because in another era, some of this stuff, it would be it would just take you to another level with that visual, and it's just so much tougher today.
Yeah, for me, like again, I didn't mean to maybe demean, any of the ladder matches we saw yesterday because I certainly felt like they were risky enough. But I think I actually have a preference maybe for a style of match that like makes the most out of what you're doing rather than like just boom 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 spot 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 spot. Like to me professional wrestling, like as I think Bret Hart has, I'm sort of paraphrasing, but it's like you're not really supposed to be getting hurt. The art of pro wrestling is pretending that you are hurt, or pretending you're doing something risky and making something look a lot riskier than it actually was. I really do appreciate, I think, good match layout. I appreciate amplifying the effect of anything that a wrestler does. So that could be whether a riskier spot or a spot that's not as risky. I just think with enough like danger as there is, with a match of this type, I just want to see everything emphasized to their maximum degree. Thank you very much, Alex, for the call.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
guys.
Let's go up next to Muggin. Muggin, one question, okay?
Yeah.
All right, what is it?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say
Or comment, whatever. One comment.
Yeah, Money in the Bank was a base hit. I mean, the women's Money in the Bank match was nuts, and it definitely eclipsed the men's match a lot. And Chelsea Green got over huge in this one. I mean, her comedy spots were effective, and and when she took that ride off the ladder to 2 tables, I'm telling you, she's gonna get even more fans because of that performance. And
Did it make
You
her?
think this will translate outside of just the Canadian market, and you think that this could spur on like babyface reaction for her?
Why not? I mean, at this point, she's definitely earned that, and she's definitely earned like more of a sustained run coming out of it. And Tiffany Stratton was clearly an odds-on favorite, and I could definitely see a scenario where since Nia Jax is going to be having the match at SummerSlam for the Women's Championship, could you imagine, like, in the weeks after that, say she wins hypothetically, I mean, I could see a scenario where one of them is going to get selfish.
That will be very interesting to see how they play with that dynamic.
And the highlight of the show to me was Cena announcing his last dance.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm like trademarking it, but I don't care. Like this is a big deal.
Well, he's kind of doing like a year-long festival
Yeah.
that leads to the final dance at the end of the final.
Yeah, I mean WrestleMania, Chamber, his last Royal Rumble, the Netflix debut on Raw, because you can pencil him in for that. And I want to ask you guys this: who would be a great final opponent for Cena?
Okay. Well, thank you, Muggin, first of all, for the call as always. Any pick, John, from you? Final opponent?
No, you got to develop something that is like, to just pick someone out of like they've got to create, like, you can look at it two ways. Like I'm not so sold on the idea that it has to be some like young talent that you're losing to on the way out. I think the Sting handling was really great, and you could put this guy out and give everyone like the happy ending at the end where he wins.
Mm-hmm.
You could do him like winning the title. Like, if there's one person they're gonna do that with, like, it's Cena winning and becoming their whatever it is. However,
you want to retire as the champion?
I when you have two titles, I think you have that latitude. You could do that, and if there's one guy that they're gonna do that with, they could.
Yeah, they could. I think he would probably insist on losing to somebody.
That's what Sting wanted. He wanted to lose. They're like, no, you're winning with the titles and vacating it.
But if he's going to have any opponent, I mean, I think you certainly look at Braun Breaker as one of those opponents throughout the course of that year-long run. Who knows where Braun will be by December of 2025. Gunther is a potential opponent for Cena that could be magical. I think both of them would be great candidates if Cena was to lose to somebody for a match. But who knows who's going to be on the cusp? It could be like Trick Williams by that point, or whoever else. So we shall see. Let's go next to Andy. Hey, Andy.
Hi guys, how are you doing? Hope you're well. I pretty much enjoyed Money in the Bank. Like you, Way, I enjoyed the spacing of all the things. Like, I can go make myself a cup of coffee or whatever between the matches and get ready for the next one. I wanted to say, I thought like the use of the men's Money in the Bank briefcase was actually kind of inspired, because with Gunther and Cody like on the cusp of these defining runs, like, you don't want like a cheap ending to either of those reigns. So like the MITB just becomes a little bit of an albatross around Triple H's neck. And I'm personally never been a fan of it anyway. Like, I don't think like getting this cheap win is like a star-making device, or at least it seldom has been, like Edge, Rollins, whatever. So I thought using it here to not just fuel Punk Drew a little bit more, but to also tie Seth Rollins back into it and potentially make this Punk's next feud. I thought that was a really, really good bit of booking. Now, I could have to live to eat my words if they make this a triple threat match and water this feud down, but as things stand, like, I was quite happy with it.
Mm. That's a very interesting perspective. Just maybe keeping in mind what they come out of this with the Seth Rollins attachment to it as well. Could they have gotten there without the Money in the Bank device? Could they have drawn us to Rollins and Punk without it? I'm sure there were ways, but this maybe was a bit more of an impactful, direct way of doing it. So that's a good point from you, Andy. Appreciate it. Thank you for the call, as always. Let's go up next to Ian. Hi, Ian.
Hello, gentlemen. Always a pleasure to be on with the industry standard here at Post Wrestling. How are you gentlemen today?
We're good, Ian.
Doing well.
I live in the UK, just finished the pay-per-view, so I don't know if you guys have touched on this. Did the pay-per-view, did the post-show as well. John, wanted to commend you for the question that you asked John Cena about Vince McMahon and how kind of instrumental it was in his own life. And it was sort of dodged, I would say. I think we had the same situation when Brandon Thurston asked a question to Triple H. Sorry if you've already touched on this. Do you take this as some sort of a directive that we're just not going to engage in these topics anymore? We've got our run sheet. We're going to thank the venue. We're going to put over the performers. We're going to put over the crowd, and we're not going to deal with these outside of a WWE bubble corporate directive.
I can't tell you if it's a directive or just that's how he responded in the moment. I don't think he wanted to address it. I don't think he wanted to go into Vince McMahon, but from my vantage point, that's not going to adjust my line of questioning. I don't think any of them owe me an answer, but I feel I do owe an audience like to ask the question when I'm in that situation. So I just look at it personally that for a John Cena, this is going to be a 18-month entire like legacy looking venture for WWE. And like, could you imagine John Cena doing this Hall of Fame speech and the name Vince McMahon does not come up? Like, this was a guy that was Vince McMahon's top star longer than anyone else in terms of being in that top position. They are inextricably linked together. And I think that it was I think it was a worthwhile question to ask. And again, like, I don't think they want to be talking about Vince McMahon in any capacity at these press conferences, but I think if we have the opportunity to ask, those are questions that still should be asked.
Yeah. Thank you. If I'm able to pivot on just one quick thing.
Sure.
Cool.
One more question.
That's it. Hey, one more. I've got my Tim's. I don't know Tim's donuts. If only I did. Sami Zayn and what I feel is the great anticlimactic Intercontinental run, in the sense that I think they're doing a really good job of building these stories or placing these performers in front of him for which we expect the title to be dropped. And it feels like it's almost like an alignment reversal, bizarro, honky tonk man type run where the beloved babyface barely escapes with the belt. And we look to see who the challenger is going to be next month. And I don't know if it was something that aired on the pay-per-view proper, if it was something I caught in the post show, but Sami did refer to it almost feeling like, I don't know, this anticlimactic, like the crowd wasn't really expecting him to win. So I wonder, is that the way you want to book this title? Is it the way that you want to present Bron Breakker? I mean, surely I hope the longer story is he's going to come back and get the win. But I asked myself, was he the right guy to beat Walter? And I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know. And I'm curious to see what you guys think.
So are you suggesting that, like, because Sami is like an underdog, like underestimated type of character, he shouldn't have had that role? Why?
No, I guess I think it's just really hard to book a perpetual underdog as a champion. The underdog, the joys in the chase. Now, how long do you have him hold on for? I don't know, but putting Bron Breakker in front of him seemed a misstep.
Well, it depends where they go. Like, if this is just maybe the first chapter of a longer feud between Sami and Bron, then I think it'd be different. But
I mean, I think he's sort of the perfect type of archetype to beat a Gunther, don't you think? You know, the guy who could do the impossible ended up doing the impossible. But okay, you're suggesting how long he can retain. It could end very soon, sure. But I think the challenge is to just, make sure this run feels substantial enough that Sami is elevated to a different level, despite like holding an Intercontinental Championship, but not the main one. And I think they still have yet to really get there. Like he's done great work with Gable. Had an okay like start with Bron, but I think there's more to be done there, and I think there's more to achieve for Sami in this role before he does lose to somebody else.
I guess it's just that in the internet wrestling community as it sits, we kind of have this postmodern second set of storylines underneath it. With your Chad Gable, the guy who's been long suffering, and this is his chance to win the big one. And the certain intelligent fan sort of is aware of that secondary narrative. And then Braun Breaker and what we expect him to turn into. And Sami Zayn's guys been around for a while. And I think we saw a little bit of it with Becky Lynch, when there seemed to be some pushback on her most recent title win, which I thought was a misstep by the audience. But I do wonder if by putting these internet darlings, or at least hope for the future, in front of Sami perpetually, if it doesn't cause some damage in the long run.
Well, thank you for the call, Ian. We're running a bit shorter. John, any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think we're going from the super strong, dominant champion to kind of your underdog champion that could lose the title on any night. It's like the opposite of Gunther. I look at Sami as like a very strong babyface character, and I think even that part is kind of underestimated by people when you see him, no matter what market you put him in, that this guy is consistently going to give you a compelling performance, whether it is speaking. Like, look at that go home segment that they did last week. His ability to kind of elicit that emotion from the audience. Like, it was not that long ago that we had such a lack of baby faces that your audience was truly engaged with. And Sami Zayn is that and then some. And that was, the basis of an entire buildup last year in the Montreal show. So I think that it's a role that I think you can view the title reign as, to me, it was as strong a follow-up as of the candidates. Like I thought it was time with Gunther to lose the belt. And I think with Braun Breaker, it was more clean than I thought it was going to be tonight. But that is not always necessarily a bad thing, that we're kind of indoctrinated to this idea that a clean loss means it's detrimental for the person involved.
For Becky, for instance, I think like her booking, people were just kind of groaning at because she had become the status quo and nothing new. Sami still feels really new in this role, and I don't think the fans are even close to turning on him yet, especially in international markets. When he starts to maybe gain a reputation for, I don't know, holding guys like Braun Breaker down, among a certain fan base, then maybe you'll start to see that. But we're not even close to getting to that point yet. Do you have time for one more, John?
Yeah, let's do one quick one.
Last one here, and I hope this is a quick one. Brandon from New Jersey. Wow, on video.
What's going on, man? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
You were talking about Jacob Fatu. It looked like he wasn't used to the pace, the WWE style pace of the match. Like it seemed like he was trying to catch up and he was moving too fast. It looked like he was gonna blow his wad. But I agree with you. Like, it would have been a better showcase for him, like as a monster, if he like beat Orton or somebody like that, like real quick. But I thought it was a good show. Everybody worked hard, both men and women. And you guys were talking about the AEW show, Forbidden Door. Like, I mean, they were great matches, but are you going to remember them like a couple months ago? Whereas WWE has these story angles and stuff like that, and they got you through to SummerSlam.
What's the pace you're keeping up running down the highway? I mean, where are you?
I'm in
like the interstate, like doing sprints.
I'm in Niagara on the lake right now. Nah, I could go like I'm doing 3 miles. I can go like under 45 minutes for 3 miles.
So you're running on your jog. You decided to call into a pro wrestling podcast review.
Yeah,
look at the scene.
Doing a number on your cell service, isn't it?
Goodness, we're interrupting your heart rate right now.
Okay, please watch out for the oncoming traffic, Brandon.
Love you guys, John. Great job keeping the story in the ether about Vince McMahon, that scumbag. Love you guys. Looked like he had a great event this weekend at Wide Open, chop-cheese.com. All right, I'm out of here. Peace. Love you guys.
Thank you, Brandon.
All right, everyone.
Yeah.
We are going to sign off, but thank you to everyone for tuning in. We do have some feedback on the forum. People can go check that out.
Why don't I stay around and read some of this, John? If you have to get going, you can sign off. Feel free.
Okay, I will do that then. But thanks to everybody. It was great to see listeners that showed up at Wide Open this weekend, and I will speak with you on Monday night.
Thank you, John. All right, let's start off with some of our written feedback over at forum.postwrestling.com, where all of our Patreon patrons can sign up and leave their written feedback for all the shows that John and I do throughout the week. That includes Rewind to Raw, Rewind to Dynamite on Wednesdays, and Rewind to SmackDown exclusively in the Post Wrestling Cafe on Fridays. All right, let's go to Sean from Toronto, who says, I just got out of the arena. This was my first WWE show since SummerSlam 2019, and while I generally like the show, I'm not sure it was worth the $110 I paid to sit in the nosebleeds with hanging pennants covering my view of the video screen. The lengthy breaks between matches also wasn't worth my money either, other than providing a convenient time to take washroom breaks. Favorite match was probably the women's Money in the Bank. Most predictable was the world title match, which was also my least favorite of the show. Nothing really after the show other than Kevin Owens getting on the mic and thanking the crowd after the most difficult weekend of his life. That is an interesting sort of like contrast, Sean, where ticket prices for the show, I think, are higher than, for any of their shows are higher than ever, while at the same time they're delivering less content per hour than ever. I would say for the most part, people are still buying these tickets. People are still coming out of them relatively satisfied, as long as they're getting like significant storyline content. And I think good matches too, but I do think that for a lot of people, they are approaching, or if not already beyond the threshold of where this feels like a valuable, like a worthwhile way of spending their money. I was also up in the nosebleeds, especially through some of the press box periods, and I definitely don't think I would have been happy paying $110 to sit up there, looking at photos of Doug Gilmore, Matt Sundin, and Tim Horton throughout the course of my evening, and not the actual in-ring itself. So sorry to hear that for you, Sean. I also completely apologize because we have a number of super chats to get to. So apologies we couldn't get John on them, but I will do my best to answer them. Ryan G sends $15 a super chat. Thank you, Ryan, for that support. Great shows and coverage, John and Wai. With G1 season fast approaching, do you have your match rating system in place for the year? Yes, we do. Well, it's the same match system that we intend on using throughout the year. For those of you who are unaware, on the Patreon, anytime John and I have done G1 ratings or G1 reviews, we always rate every single match. It's the one time of the year where we actually will have a rating system. And for me and for him, it's typically ranging between a small for a 1-star match, medium for a 2-star match, 3 for a large, extra large, and then the ever elusive double XL. And of course, you could throw your sugars and your milks and whatever else you want in if you want to maybe create a bit more of a step between those ratings. But that's just us. Everybody else on the joining us for the reviews kind of has their own rating systems, and they're so confusing at this point. I can't even explain to you, but I'll let them do that work. But thank you very much, Ryan, for asking. The ratings reviews will be back. Chris Mulholland sends $5. Thank you, Chris. He says the cash-in screwed Seth over and adds him to the feud now. Could be a 3-way. So maybe, I think you're agreeing with Andy's sentiment that it was a worthwhile cash-in last night for Drew McIntyre to lose just to include Seth in the feud. And you could be very right. We'll see how they play that up. We'll see if it is a 3-way. Are you guys happy with a 3-way? I tend to think like Punk and Drew as a lone feud is so hot right now. That probably should be the first match that they go with. But they could start off with a 3-way and then break off to a singles match, or maybe go to a 3-way after SummerSlam. Let me know what you think. Lastly, we got to RT the Brand, who says, first-time listener sending $2 to show support. Thank you very much, RT. Appreciate you checking us out. Please like and subscribe to the video. All right, let's continue here with forum.postwrestling.com. Benjamin says, the men's ladder match wasn't all that good. Couple of good spots, but holy shit, did the AEW TNT ladder match way outdo this. I like that McIntyre won. I like the story. I don't like Braun Breaker. His entire persona is Roid Rager with a bad spray tan. No thanks. I think the show was probably one of WWE's weakest in some time. Women's Money in the Bank match was okay. I dug the Punk McIntyre bit. The rest was meh. Kind of got upstaged by Cena's announcement, but good for him. All right. So
Very casual thoughts here from Benjamin. Jay from Colorado. I thought it was a great show tonight, which was made better by what I thought was a red hot crowd. I love the Trish integration throughout, and the Cena announcement definitely caught me off guard. Match of the night for me was a women's Money in the Bank match. Absolutely awesome. It's getting harder and harder to predict what's going to happen on these shows, and as a lifelong fan, that's the best I could ask for. Whatever Trips is doing, he's doing it right. He's straight up stringer belling this company, and it feels so good. If that was something that I shouldn't have said, I apologize. It's what was written here. Love you guys, and thank you for everything you do. Stringer belling. Okay. Hey guys, sorry to break it to you. This comes to us from Charlie. Sorry to break it to people, but Drew should have waited until the match was finished to cash in his briefcase. But overall, this was a good PLE. Honestly, the shocking news of Cena announcing his retirement was unreal. I know most of the athletes that grew up are due to retire soon. For example, that we grew up with are due to retire soon. For example, Cristiano Ronaldo or Tony Cruz. But it's important to remember their legacies and their respective runs. Yes, it is. Yeah, on the Drew McIntyre front, I expect Drew to come up with like a pretty good excuse in hindsight for why he decided in the moment to make it a three-way rather than cash in on one of the individuals beforehand. He seems to be like the type of promo that seems to like to tie up those loose ends and use very good logic in his promo. So I at least expect him to address that in the promo. Let's go here. Lastly, to Annie, who says the show suffered from pacing issues and the gaps between matches were overly long. However, I quite enjoyed it. Finding the discourse surrounding the Money in the Bank to be pretty dumb. With Gunther and Cody set to have defining runs, the briefcase is an albatross around the Booker's neck, using it as a plot device to further Punk and Drew while adding further fuel to a Punk Rollins feud for down the line was an inspired bit of booking. Watch them make me eat my words by making this a triple threat. I was initially skeptical of Solo and Cody, but with all the work they put into heating up the Bloodline over the last 3 weeks, he's beginning to feel like a SummerSlam worthy opponent, in my opinion. He certainly feels like a heel that the audience wants to see get his ass kicked. So, yeah, a lot of maybe sentiment contrasting maybe my thoughts and John's thoughts about the Money in the Bank cash in usage. But I think, as you've alluded to, Ani, it's all in the follow-up and seeing how they do, how they play with it. So we look towards that on Monday. Raw from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. If you're going to be there, decide to maybe leave us some feedback in the Post Wrestling Cafe. So thank you, all of you guys joining us. A lot of you guys joining us on a Sunday afternoon. We're typically live after all these events, but because this was in Toronto, we decided to do this one late. Appreciate all of you, especially the international viewers. Thank you, John. Thank you to everybody we saw this week at Wide Open. And thank you, of course, to our sponsors at NordVPN, where you can sign up, get your 4 months free, get your free Saley data voucher at nordvpn.com/postwrestling and support the show, of course. All right, talk to you guys on Monday. Until then, bye-bye.